you're like, damn, that's not what I'm meditating on though right now. And so it's, once again, and that also shows how it's even more challenging not to get angry with yourself in those moments, because now because you're sitting here and we're talking about it right now, that you're actually draining the good karma of that virtuous thought, because that wasn't what your meditative object was. And it's a different thing. It'd be a different thing if you began the meditation with that, your mother was your teacher, and so you're continually giving all of everything that she would ever want or something like that. But, it's still, out of all the types of distractions and agitations you can have, it also is, not as destructive as some of the others. So then moving along to number 20 here, and yeah, I love it. This is where Finn, for the first time, is out in front of his mind. And it's just such a strong image, because he's got this, he's got his chain of recollection, so he's just holding the mind in place, very firmly, and he's got that hook of watchfulness, and he's just fixing the gaze of his mind at that point, of the elephant. And even though there's still dullness here within the mind, and that little bunny is still subtle, representing subtle dullness, is still got some power as well. And we'd spoken about this last week in terms of how, at this level, at what is about to be the 5th level of meditation, you could do a gratitude meditation. We had talked about, and I wanted to make this clear because some people were asking about it afterwards, like, so does that mean we can start doing that meditation now? and the truth about how this goes is that it would only be technically when you were at the 5th level of meditation, which is controlling the mind, where you have control of the mind, that then if you started to have subtle dullness, that then you would use the anecdote of uplifting the mind with this gratitude meditation. I will certainly give you the mixel, what we call a mixel, which is an exception, that, from time to time, if you're finding that you're struggling with subtle dullness, often, is to do that meditation separately, which is where your entire meditation is like generating. It's almost like you're populating. You see like this entire Broadway stage, and like one by one, you're bringing out people you want to thank, and you just keep going, So like next up, there's my mom, and you take the time there of gratitude, because it's so beautiful that you can't be thankful for something you don't already have. And that in itself is a recognition of the goodness in your life. So you can see how that can really uplift your heart in a moment where you're really not feeling sharp. You're not feeling clear and intense in the meditation. So yeah, certainly, do that one, and with that kind of motivation of that, I want to hone this so that at the point where I'm at the 5th level of meditation, I have control of my mind, for the most part, that if I have any subtle dullness that kind of creeps in there, I can immediately then place my meditative object on this gratitude, the list of people I want to thank. But at this point now, for the most part, do that as a separate meditation. So 21, which is right above Finn, is the actual 5th level, which is controlling the mind. And it's important here to also remember that typically, you know, we were talking about how the mind is radiating out, and that, you know, thoughts, perceptions, projections, you know, it's constantly in this direction. And this is the power of meditation, is drawing the mind in, you know, and that's, it's interesting because at this point, because of the power of meditation that you're practicing, you can actually then start to control the mind too much. And that triggers subtle dullness. And it's very interesting what's kind of going on at that time. Because going back to our old friend, our ego, it's almost like that's a way that he or she kind of shows up like, hey man, you're pretty much in control right now of your mind. And there's almost, I don't know, it's like anything that, we're young and learning a sport or something like that, and you start to get skilled at it, and it's like, yeah, I want to do more. You know, and it's the same kind of relationship. It's like, ooh, I've got some control, like more control. Like I've really, and what happens in that moment is that actually triggers subtle dullness, because you think you're really kind of kicking ass in the meditation. You're fixed, you've got clarity, and you feel control, but at the same time, you're still lacking that intensity. What you're thinking there is kind of what we've described as nar, and in this instance is that you are not having contentment with your meditative object. What you are having is this excitement about the fact that you're controlling your mind, and so then that subtle dullness and that's why it is just so insidious in that way, it's as as the masters say, it's the one that subtle dullness, it has this kind of pervasiveness all throughout, because there's so many different factors that can be triggering it. And it is true that one of the great ways to really be able to make that correction, other than uplifting the mind, is to go straight to nar, is to go straight to that contentment with the object, and it's almost when you're even in moments where you're like, I'm not sure if I'm a little dull right now. Even in that moment, that right there is a sign to just go, you know what? I'm content with this. I'm content with this. And that's using that kind of little Buddhist trickery we talked about weeks ago, which is that you actually right there used the distraction to put you right back on the object. It's like, am I a little bit dull? I'm going to be content with this, and that's, so it's really, we always talk about this, that basically what this whole process is straightening the turnings of the mind, the way we twist things with our perceptions, the way we twist the way things are really happening in this world. And meditation really is what gives us this clear path as we get stronger and stronger in it. So, I think that's where we got up to last week. And so now we're moving along to 22. Which I kind of like, the monkey, the elephant, and Finn out front. So it's wonderful how quick a progression this is, because 21 is the 5th level of meditation, which is controlling the mind, and 22 is the 6th level of meditation, which is quieting the mind. And so it's intriguing to me, and something that I want to study about further as to how that progression is so quick. What's really what really fascinates me at this point too is that look at the top of the elephant. No more bunny, no more rabbit. That subtle dullness is gone. And the monkey, distraction, is just barely holding on. You'll see it's just like a little bit of his little black legs of agitation is barely present as well. And what that can really, the reason that there's that little bit of subtle agitation still lingering there is because of actually doing the correction to subtle dullness, uplifting the mind. When we uplift too much, then we actually trigger subtle agitation. And it makes sense because uplifting the mind is you're thinking about something very positive. You're thinking about something you're very thankful for and so forth. And as we said with agitation, is that it's our mind going to something that we like, that we desire. And this can be as simple as, you're thinking about how great your best friend is. And you think about them for about like 10 seconds. And that it's already taken you into some subtle agitation. It should have been more like 5 seconds. So it's, that's what's triggering it, is where if you're in this place of uplifting the mind by thinking about these people that you are really thankful for, that you're spending you're using that too much. You're using that power too much. So you need to just back off of that and go back to the object. The good thing is, though, that the danger and duration of subtle agitation at this point on the 6th level is much less than on the 5th level. I mean, you can even see that visually, like, half the elephant is still black and the bunny is still up on his back and also all the monkeys. So at this point, it's always good to see, like, okay, well, what differentiates this level from the previous level? So here, that duration and the strength of it, the danger of it, is much less distinguished. And it's cool here as well because Finn is out front because he has fully matured his power of watchfulness at this point. And I mean, thus is like having the right hand holding up this hook, like he's like Conan with a broadsword or something like that. Like, yes, I can watch my mind like a true adult. That's really it. Like, you've really matured the mind that much. So then we're grooving along there, moving into the next bend in the road, which would be the 5th power, which is effort. And it's a funny thing because sometimes you kind of question, like, why would effort show up here? We're so, it seems like we're doing pretty well. Why would I need to exert effort? And part of it is kind of because of the fact of that you're about at the level of effortlessness. I mean, we're literally almost to that point. So it's kind of like, I don't remember that particular, was it Aikido, or was that the one with the swords or the canes or so forth or something like that, that martial art? Something where part of the practice is that, they move, the opponents move at each other with like one strike, and it's so precise, and so concentrated. And that's similar to like your power at this point, is that now you are getting to the point where you can exact just the one little thing you need to do, and so that's where the effort is. And that it doesn't take anything away from the degree of the power of that effort. That's what's beautiful about it, is like, it's like, it's at that level of mastery, and I always used to think about this when, at a time where I was learning to play the saxophone, that, there's kind of two ways, there's kind of two schools of thought of like how to play, and you'd hear these great musicians talk about, it's like, well, you either approach it like Bird or you approach it like Miles, which was like, Charlie Parker was, a phenomenal saxophonist. It was, when he played, it was like he was exploring every note possible. I mean, that's how expansive his mind was while playing. So for him, he was doing things that no one had ever done before. And it was just like no one could keep up with him. Miles' approach was one where he was looking to play precisely the perfect note, like within each bar. So, and it's funny because you listen to some of his great classics that are like 18 minutes long or something like that, and there might be these pauses of like 30 seconds, and it'll come in and play like 2-3 notes, and like within those 16 bars or something like that, Bird might have played like 68 notes or something like that, and it's just a different approach. It's just a different approach, both with having an equal degree of power. So that's why here, the effort that you'll be exacting is going to be precise and powerful, but you're also getting to the point where you're not even going to need to use it anymore. And moving to number 24, which is pretty much here, with the monkey and Finn, and then the elephant in front of him, which is the 7th level of meditation, which is completely quieting the mind. I love that. Completely quieting. We can quiet it, but then it's one thing to completely quiet it. Yeah, your power, or your powers of recollection and watchfulness at the 7th level are completely mature. They're completely matured at that point. And it's wonderful too, because you can see how on the elephant, your mind, there are only like a trace of dullness. Like there's his rear legs have a little bit of black on them. So dullness is just barely having any presence in your mind anymore. And then the little monkey is, in terms of losing the object or distraction, it's like he almost looks like he's like begging for attention. Like, it's to like get your, and I love the position of Finn here, because his left hand is down and he's just like, no, thank you. Like, it's like the point of like, that distraction is begging you to be distracted, because you're really not going to be distracted anymore. Yeah, you've created the seeds and the practice to not be. And it's wonderful with Finn's position here as well, because this is the first time he's standing between his mind and distraction. And he's looking out, not ahead or behind. His arms are down, relaxed. He doesn't have a chain or hook in hand. And it's like, in looking, like that's the image of someone who's getting some peace of mind. Doesn't even need to have the kind of physical form of the weapons anymore, because he's absorbed them fully. And I love it too, just that position, like that it's like he can have like dullness and agitation to his right and left, like be like in between them, which could many times seem like a very like being in the belly of the beast. But he looks totally content. Totally content. Beautiful. Yeah, it's probably important at this point as well to to remind ourselves of what our mode of focus has been, our state of mind. So remember, we were talking about, like, if you're going to remember anything of these lists, remembering the 964. So the 9 levels of meditation, the 6 powers, and then the 4 states of mind, which began down here with forcefully concentrating. That was really, that's our initial state of mind, is where we're continually forcefully trying to concentrate on the object, stay on the object. But then, and that's the first and second level, but then levels, the meditation levels 3 through 7, we actually are able to keep our mind more on the object than off, but we're having those patches of interruption. You know, so we're having that broken stream. And what's important to note about that is that sustaining the quality of our concentration throughout these levels, 3 through 7, is continually being interrupted, and thus diminishing the quality, the quality of our meditation. So that's why, we need to really be mindful and continue to use recollection and awareness, to keep making those corrections. And this is particularly relevant for the fact of, like, being in a group setting like this and doing meditation, how important it is to really try not to disturb the other people in the room, because maybe you felt it at some point over the past few weeks. I remember last week there being a very much a sense of this. You feel the energy in the room when it's focused and it's calm, and it's really it's a very beautiful practice, because first of all, everybody is trying to do the same thing. It's like everybody is sitting in here trying to place their mind single-pointedly on this object, and that's affecting your meditative environment, and I think Geshe-la had brought up, I think he alluded to a Zen master or something about this, because in the Zen tradition there is often doing group meditation of everybody being in a room together, and that's one of the very many powerful aspects of it. But I think he was talking about how this Zen master had held up a pencil representing one person meditating, and then he took the pencil and, like, snapped it, very easily in his fingers, just broke it, which is how easy it is to break our concentration. But then he took 10 pencils in his hand, which of course was then not very easily broken. And that is a beautiful metaphor of of the power of a group setting. So this is something where when you're at this point of your mode of focus and you're in a group setting like this, of having that awareness of, like, okay, well, I also, like, my motivation is also to create a good meditation for others, the others who are in the room. Hey, come in. And once again, single-pointed concentration, that's really what that effort is about. And the single-pointed is one thing, the mind on one object. That's it. Yeah. So moving along, look at this beautifully depicted white elephant. Yeah, it's amazing. This is This is the 8th level, the 8th level of meditation. Man, we're getting close. We're getting close to 9. And that's attaining single-pointedness. Yeah, at this point, the monkey's gone. The monkey's not even there. The rabbit's gone. And the elephant is beautifully white and clear. And I love this because Finn he's actually, like this gesture, he's actually kind of guiding his mind now. With this hand gesture, this way, Mr. White Elephant, Mr. Clear Mind. So he's directing it, which is exactly where we want to get to, where we're just guiding it. Now now I'll place this on this virtuous object for what could be eternity. That you would have that level of power at this point. And the key is that there is no agitation and dullness, which is what distinguishes it from the 7th level. Because that's the thing, when you look at how quickly, and I am going to research this more, how quickly the progression is from 5th to 6th level, like 21 to 22, and then the 7th to the 8th level, 25 to 26. So, and this in kind of in a general sense of how karma works, is that as you get further and further and deeper into your path, your understanding and your mindfulness of how karma works becomes more and more refined, and thus you are aware of it as it's firing off it's 65 times within each second. So you actually you're really mindful of how fast your karma is ripening. In other words, the acceleration of the thoughts that are coming through your mind. So to be at this point where you are attaining single-pointedness, so you've got that fixation, you've got that clarity, you've got that intensity, and many points, some people would say, well, that's all good, what more do I need? That's what we're getting to. That's what we're getting to. So, moving into this final bend in the road here, which is 27. So the 6th and final power, which is total habituation, continued practice, which is precisely what would naturally and logically propel you into the 9th level. And it's so beautiful because, this epic journey from down here, for the first time, Finn is seated. It's like he's just sitting down. And he's in deep meditation. That's the 9th level. Is the term we use for it is samadhi, S-A-M-A-D-H-I, which and that has many different meanings throughout the entire school of Buddhism. But in this sense, it's deep meditation. And I love it too because look at his mind. It's just lying down next to him and resting. So, we finally, make it all the way to the 9th level, and yet there seems to be more going on here. So I know that the first time I was looking at this, I was like, okay, what is that about? This is the whole thing has been like 9 levels of meditation, and you get there and you attain deep meditation, you have single-pointed concentration. Like, what more? Yet, what else is there to do? Which is precisely the question, which has everything to do with what we've been talking about with emptiness. So you've achieved this immaculate power of the mind to be able to single-pointedly concentrate on something virtuous, which is exactly what you need in order to be able to perceive the ultimate nature of reality directly. So, of course, now the next question would then be, what the hell do we need to do in order to do that at this point? And we'll talk about that next week. Talk about that next week. Yeah, because it's we're the mountaintop is the mountaintop for certain reasons, but yeah. So let's take a break. No, actually, before we break, we'll do a meditation. Yeah. What do we need to do to perceive emptiness directly? I mean, seriously, man. We can focus our mind single-pointedly and no issues whatsoever. Think about that this week. what the possibilities could be. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. Let's get into our favorite posture and position. Roll those shoulders back once and just let them rest where they fall. Push down with your butt. Get your back nice and straight. Drop the chin a little bit. Make sure your head is nice and even. Relax your face. Around your eyes, around your mouth. Just relax. And please watch your breath. Tie your mind to your breath. There's no other thing in the world. Come to your golden room, covered with the last light of day. Look out the window at the blue of the sky. Gaze at the mountains across the valley. Come back into the golden room and see your teacher. Sitting in front of you. Feel them take your hand and just concentrate on the touch of their hand. To help you do this, you might even close your eyes in the golden room to stay focused on just the feeling of them holding your hand. Try to see what kind of problems are coming up. Are you thinking of something else? Are you spacing out, getting sleepy? Maybe the object's not that fascinating to you. Try to call up a sense of satisfaction, a willingness to stay there, not moving, just the hands touching. You're happy to just stay silent, unmoving, together with your teacher and the touch of their hand. come back into this room and slowly open your eyes. Now we can break. Welcome, Greg.
It's an empty again. I wish I hadn't noticed that you've done it. No offense.
Ooh, thank you.
Fruit, berries.
It sounded like Eve from Adam and Eve or something like this. Fruit, berries, bliss.
I have my favorite fruits coming in season soon.
Which is?
Black mission figs. Fresh black
yeah.
mission figs.
Mira loves
I
figs.
haven't seen black. I've seen the green or yellow. You can't buy black. You're buying the Turkish ones.
Wow, this is a woman who knows her figs.
So, do they have a little bit of yellow in them?
On the top?
Mm-hmm.
He's looking like you're fig crazy.
I'm buying black figs. I've been doing it for years.
Oh. How's it going, man?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's been a long day.
I hear that.
Yeah. I have a hard time with my object, my teacher, and I have no idea if I'm doing it right or what's going on, but I'm always really excited to be seeing it.
That's great.
And there are times like, sometimes I listen to one of your Ustreams while I'm doing something. It's kind of just, there's a long day and it's hard to get back in that headspace.
Yeah.
But so we're down and we're looking up at the mountain and I'm like, I want to run up. I want to see my teacher. I want to see my friend Tim. And so I'm very excited about it. And when I see him, it's hard for us to just be quiet and content. And it's not like we're talking about the latest sports score or remake of Conan the Barbarian or what it is. But I picked him because of his virtuous nature, because of how much I admire him and how great of a person he is, and how supportive he is. And he he almost is like an extra guide within the meditation. That makes sense. I may start to lose focus on okay, we're thinking about the golden light and something something left in the room or something happens. I'm like, my mind started to wander, and he's like, no, it's okay, buddy.
That's awesome.
And so and he's so just he's a great dad. But he brings me back into that. But I don't know if that's me being agitated or dull or and I'm still unsure if I'm doing this right. But I feel great a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And the feeling that I get from staying there with him, and just, sometimes we're just content just to sit in that sunlight and to feel the glow. And sometimes I thank him for something or say something about the day or something. It seems I'm just excited about being around my friend who I don't see very often. And he's also very, for me at least, very virtuous and somebody that I am open to admiring. And so it started to kind of creep into my mind recently. Well, am I supposed to just shut the hell up and just, are we still here like, do 10? That's cool.
Yeah, well, it's first of all, it sounds like you have chosen a great object, great teacher, because you know that feeling of excitement, that feeling of just being psyched to be in the room with them, that is core, that is absolutely essential. What's also wonderful is the fact of you can trust the fact that even when he's seeming to guide you, kind of like direct you here or something like that, what's wonderful is that the truth of that is that that's still your mind. So you are still doing it. What's terrific as well is the fact of that you have empowered, you have in many ways almost, you have activated the visualization so much that then you would even have the thought in the meditation of that this person is guiding me.
Right.
Which is wonderful. I mean, that's because that's really bringing a living being into the room with you.
Yeah. I would say that absolutely is the way that it feels. I mean, it's great, and I feel peaceful around him, and I also feel, I don't say that within the meditation I feel inspired, but the afterglow, if you will.
Yeah.
30 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I guess I will go do this thing. Or maybe I am going to call my mom and thank her for being such a good person. I don't know. It does inspire me. I don't know. I'm just... I tend to self-judge and self-doubt a lot, and so now I'm kind of like, okay, I feel pretty good about a lot of this stuff, and I'm like,
Good.
okay, I must be doing something right.
Yes. Oh, you are so perfectly human, like the rest of us. The only aspect of that, really, that I would see you refining is it any kind of chit chat or something going on between you? You know, any kind of, if in the meditation it's literally like he's just got your hand on top of your hand, you know, then that's it. Then for you, then what would be very good is that if you start to feel some other type of interaction going on between you guys, that's wonderful, because then that's where your object is, let's say at that moment, is just the feel of his hand on your hand. So you go back to that. So because that is getting into the realm of agitation, because and the reason that that it's the most prevalent that we have. Go into that things we like. So it's like, you really love this guy and being with him and so forth, and it's like you really are feeling that. So of course all these, if I was to think about like one of my best friends, Graham, who I very rarely see and so forth, I could totally see me having a similar experience. But then that's wonderful, because that shows you then where your practice, your development really is to be able to say, okay, Tim, just focusing, just looking at you right now.
So far, that's been pretty good. Strangely enough, actually, over a week ago now, when I meditate, I have my hands open, and I've been imagining him putting his hands.
Oh, nice.
So, which is just weird tonight, but it's more like his hands in mine, and then I'm thinking like, well, what do Tim's hands really feel like? What's where are they? He's kind of working. They're probably calloused a little bit. And I started thinking about what kind of construction where we focus back to Tim's hand phone.
Nice. Excellent. Wow, man. You're meditating.
All right.
You're meditating. Feel good about that. I mean, honestly, because that really, the self-flagellation that all of us do, It's part of it. Honestly, is what makes us a human being. You know, is this sense of inadequacy, continual sense of inadequacy, is what, you know. If we had, what's the best way to put this? If we had, if we had treated every living being, let's just in this life, with kindness, then you would have no. It would be impossible for you to then have any sense of inadequacy, because all you are seeing then, all you have been doing is adding, helping, giving to the fullness of another individual. You know, that's what kindness is. You know, an act of kindness, you can look at it that way. Like, you know, what I'm doing, I'm fulfilling this whatever for this person. And so that's all you ever did, you know. But of course, you know, this is not the case for us, you know. In fact, there's so many times it's like, oh man, I didn't do that, or, you know, I could have done that for that. I cut that guy off on the road. I mean, Jesus, take a half an hour out of your day, you know. So that's why it's so essential that in this kind of precious time, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, that each step of the way, even when you're having some problems coming up, you know, you're agitated and so you're off the object and so forth, that you're not being like, damn it, you know, you suck. Get back on the object. Because then that seed gets, especially because in that moment, you know, this is open at that time. So it's real, it's like, the kind of image I get is like you've got a microscopic camera like at the earth level, like, you know, you're seeing this huge black seed being planted, you know. So yeah, you know, at least during that time, be good to yourself.
It's amazing having chosen my friend Tim, and I didn't know when I came in the first week. I goes, oh, we're just gonna come and do some breathing or something. Yeah. And like, I was not told there would be a teacher on this test. And Tim popped up, but he really like that self-flagellation and that like beating up while I'm within the meditation. He protects me. So it's been such a gift. And
Terrific, Brad. Terrific.
all right, well, thank you for answering that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's actually distracting me during this last one. Still want to check this out, see if I'm that's right, not right, good, bad, in between.
It's good that you earmarked that. You're like, okay, ask about this. Yeah. Now back to the object. Excellent.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome. No, I'm cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good?
How are you doing without me?
Not yet. Oh, you heard that?
She is sitting in the office. Well, I don't wait. I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking myself.
Oh wow, you caught that. That's pretty insightful.
Well, then I remember like when you were setting up the Lama Marut thing. You were there the night before and I brought some snacks. So I'm like, do you want one of these? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I haven't eaten all day. I'm like, who comes to the middle of nowhere?
Thank goodness you gave me that.
I don't know what it was.
I don't know what it was.
Or a cereal bar or something.
Thank you so much. Because I was just talking to someone about, I remember right before the rest retreat we just did up in Encino with Charlie, because he was really producing that.
I don't know what
No, you don't know Charlie? Yeah, he's been down here a few times, but he lives in New York, and he is one of our students, and he was producing it, and I said to him, I'm like, make sure you eat. Because he likes to eat, and it was beautiful because when we got to that place, Holy Spirit, have you ever been? Really, it was wonderful. We got there early to set up, and we went in, and one was like, hey, well, we're serving lunch right now. If you guys want that? I was like, Charles, you've got some good karma, baby. And I wish I had remembered that you had given me that, because I remember getting food at some point. Yeah. So how things going in your world? Yeah. What's the latest with the?
Quiet.
It's quiet.
That means no, things are unresolved.
They're unresolved,
So it's gonna boil up again.
but it's not on fire.
No, it's just quiet. It's waiting to explode. It is because it's quiet. And I refuse to take anybody's calls when they're not staying. But there's issues that, and probably things that are being done ready to come. It's just.
But is there anything? There's nothing left that you need to do, right?
Well, the tenant has a cash deposit check, and she didn't want to give me a forwarding address. I sent it to a condo association, and I think when her lawyer probably told me her.
Oh, so they would have to give her the check.
That's what she wanted.
Oh,
To give me a forwarding address.
okay.
She wanted to give it to me, like I would go there or call.
Yeah.
I've been so decent with her. It's so weird. It's the weirdest. Like, you're really decent. Anyways, well.
So they've got the check.
Right.
Do you know they have the check?
I don't know. Doesn't matter. I sent it certified mail.
You did, okay.
That's all I have to do.
Okay.
So she can come back with like papers that you couldn't send me. And I have to go through. Yes, I did. I sent her the instructions. She was certified mail. They kept it. I don't know which you wanted. I would personally give my home address.
Yeah. Right. So what would need to be done for you to be totally resolved?
Well, I'm not going to call anybody to talk to me. Well, I need to not only that apartment.
Okay. So that would be.
And then that would be done with one thing, and then I need to see what the tax implications were, if any, and then hopefully I won't get sued.
Okay.
By the association. They said they won't. They said a month ago because it costs them too much money.
Yeah.
But you never know when they're like, well, let's go after Lily. Let's start going after Lily.
Okay. Are you feeling more at peace with it?
I'm trying to because my I mean, it's quiet. Teacher calls not talking to
Okay.
or following up on anything with her.
Okay. So you're detaching from it.
I've always been detached.
Emotionally.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, you're not going to make anybody like, I want to resolve so quickly. I sent her a deposit with, like, deductions, even though I haven't done the work yet. But and then the work is more than what I deducted, so I'm actually losing money on it. But I just wanted that done.
Oh, okay.
Just because it's just like you stay busy, you know how people when they're working. So so I make this little money. I just wanted in the mail,
Yeah. That'd be it.
But yeah, now we just have.
You smell exhaust.
Yeah,
Is the car like parked right there?
we got in the car over the door and I turned it on. You can close it. It's gonna get noxious.
Yeah. Oh, I see. They're right there. There's the tail light. There they go. Okay. All right. Well, I definitely would like to get together sometime soon, just to. Yeah. So we can, talk about that. Or not.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like, if I really can, it can help, but I just don't, it's just like in a really
Yeah.
I can get into a position or be positive around people when I'm being myself,
Yeah.
like, I have no reason to say
Okay.
there's nothing in my life that I can to,
Yeah.
and I try to be positive. Crazy at the time,
Yeah.
So you tried, I come home and my house is always there, my bed's always there. But at the end of the day, like it's good, but what's the purpose? There's no
Right.
purpose.
So that's what I want to get together about.
There's no really like I think it's now like what is it?
Yeah.
It's like I'm so far down. It's like lifting my butt and it's like I'm not so stressed out, but it's really like I'm lost like like I'm doing stuff because I have, some wisdom.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, these thoughts are so depleting.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why can't I stop thinking these thoughts? And then I just can't. And then I have to stop and then stop.
Were you going to be around this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Is your dance card pretty full?
No, not this weekend. This weekend.
Okay.
But this weekend, recently it's to Florida.
Oh wow. Okay. So maybe this weekend, tea or something.
Also, I really don't know what to call it.
Well,
as you
know, it's like not even going to be me. You're going to be the one that's going to do it.
I just don't really care. I'm happy or content with my life. I'm not.
All right. Well, I'm going to call you.
What's that?
No, it's cool. They drew it. All righty. Let's drop back in. I'm sure, we can all relate to the fact of when you don't feel so good about life, that part of that feeling is a helplessness. It's almost like that is exactly what contributes to that feeling. It's like I'm at a loss. These are things that we say in terms of that. And you have this word called emptiness. And it's very understandable that you can bring that word to mind during one of those times and be like, yeah, so what? And what does that really do? And this is where the rubber meets the road, often. It is outstanding to be very much on your practice when life is relatively going along all right. But it just seems to be how we operate. Everyone in this room has had some real trauma in their life. Some very deep trauma in their life. And has seen other people that they care about or they're close to have deep trauma in their life. And what this whole thing is about, what emptiness is about, what meditating is about, is that when that occurs, you're able to not only soothe your own mind and your own heart, but to help someone else in that moment. And quite often, what is the direct cause of that? You being able to soothe your own heart and your own mind is because you put your full focus on this other person who really doesn't care about living much anymore. And as we've been talking about, about emptiness, it really, our understanding of it is, of course, essential, but equally important is being able to practically seeing it at work in our life. That's so much of what honestly gives us traction, is really being able to see it operating in our life. Like Veronica said, it's like when Greg got up the chair, it's like it's empty. That actually is a very practical application of it. It was empty before he sat in it, and it's empty now, but it's like you can do something as simple as close your eyes and open them, and he's in the chair, and it's like, and some of them it's like it's simple and it's fun, and then there's a moment when, I can remember, I remember a few years ago, really before I had deeply dropped into the practice, and, I got one of those phone calls from, my mother, who was, sobbing and telling me of a very close friend who I was also close to who had died, surprisingly, the night before. And I can remember that when I heard it, like that I just literally dropped to my knees. Like just everything went. My body just let go. And it's, we talk about what's called spiritual revisionism, which is that, what you're learning in your own path, you look back on your life, you can then start to look through it with the eyes that you have now, the mind that you have now. And, I look back at that moment, and the last thing in the world that I thought of, even within 5 minutes of that phone call, was his wife. What she was going through, or his 2 children, what they were going through. Fortunately, relatively soon after that, I got to the point of thinking about my mom, who was, very close to him. And there is absolutely no question that it was in trying to comfort her that I started to feel grounded again. And yet there's still that moment, the moment that those words came out and said, William's dead. And that's what is given to us in this practice, is that when that moment happens, it's not about the fact that you don't feel that loss. That life for that person in that way has just changed. But it's the fact of that you don't go in to this place of total self-absorption. Because it's within self-absorption that depression and anger and jealousy and ignorance, that's what it all lives in. Is what about me? You know, what is this for me? And fortunately, we do, you know, we can start to track a way of understanding it mentally, you know, if we need to at first, like, well, what is me? You know, to begin with, to then be able to get in a very practical application in our life of that if, you know, we need to file for bankruptcy or that, you know, someone has just died that we were close to, that we're able to deal with that in a compassionate, wise way in that moment. And it's sometimes that, you know, just thinking of that possibility can be a tremendous motivation. Tremendous motivation to sit your butt down and meditate for 5 minutes. Because I want to be that way. You know, I want to be that way, which of course you're saying, okay, well that's also selfish, but that's about the best damn self-interest you could have. Is that I want to be in a place that when the shit goes down, I will be there for everyone. Exactly and perfectly how they need me to be. You know, and that is a tremendous promise that can be fulfilled through this. I mean, and all that lies between us and this perfect world of happiness that we all want is fundamentally, in many ways, is understanding emptiness. It's this pen. You know, it comes back to this pen. You know, we have a feeling about emptiness. But the truth is that when we look at this thing, we don't typically think, oh, that's coming from my mind. You know, someone, you know, hands you a pen or something like that, and you're like, oh, thank you. Yes, I provided that from my mind. You know, and it's very understandable that that's not the case. But it's the false appearance of the pen that it comes from itself. And at the same time, to say that this is a pen is not wrong. For us, this is a pen and functions as a pen perfectly. But this book right here, if we had absolutely no understanding of emptiness or karma, this book right here, you know, would just be full of blank pages. And what the emptiness is doing in this instance is the emptiness is actually providing the page, the blank page, but the seeds that we have planted in our minds is what's providing all of these words. You know, the fact that the dog would literally, you know, I mean, if I put it to a dog right now, they might, you know, sniff it or something like that. If I ripped out a page, they might chew on it or something like that. But for us, you know, I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, wow, that actually is leading me to understand the ultimate nature of reality. That's how precious this life is, this human life, is to be able to even have an inkling of like what these words could potentially ripen into. So the emptiness and the karma are working together always, you know, continually. You know, once again, it's that the emptiness is delivering the presentation, and your karma is delivering the interpretation of that presentation. And that can be the difference of when you see someone, what your experience is of seeing someone die. That's a very practical way of like, what is the karma, what are the past actions that are then ripening in your mind the way you have treated others in the past, the kindness with which you have treated each other. My grandmother had died a few years ago, and she, when she died, she did die peacefully in a nursing home. So for my mom and her sister who were at her bedside at that time, that was only could be the result of how they had acted towards people in the past. To be able to see their own mother go that way. Because we all know there are much horrific ways someone could go. Tremendously painful, agonizing. So this is what we really want to do with this. What we're talking about here, and particularly as we're going to, when we move into these last few stages, it can get very theoretical, very highly conceptual, and what we need to do is endeavor to make that personal. And try to see in some way how it's happening in our lives. It's very useful to use like the valid, reasonable state of mind that we spoke about last week about Lily. That there's that state of mind that when Lily looks in the mirror and says, "That's Lily." That's a very reasonable state of mind, and that's absolutely functional. Lily is the perception of that person that appears in the mirror. That's really what's constituting Lily at that point. But there is some part of our mind, there are some seeds in our mind that are infected with still thinking that Lily is coming from Lily, that Lily is still coming from her own side. I mean, it's going on right now, and what we really need to try to do is to be able to distinguish between the kind of okay perception of Lily and the not okay perception of her. Because otherwise, what we'll do is we'll go to an extreme of where either nothing matters or nothing's real. And there are people like that are in asylums. I mean, it's very true. Where their perception of reality has become just so perverted that it's like, what's real anymore? And I don't know everyone's personal experience, but that kind of shift can happen very easily for us, and that's why it's very important for us to be able to distinguish between that and the way we think things are working. So, I mean, is Brian teaching? Yes. Is Brian speaking? Yes. Is the content of what he's saying coming from his thoughts? No. Is what he's saying coming from his mind? No. The content of what he's saying is coming from your mind. And that's a way of distinguishing between what we would call an okay perception and a not okay perception. That understanding is that everything that you're hearing right now is coming from your mind. And that there is a form through which you are manifesting it. And it's the same thing, and this is really beautiful that Miguel was talking about in his meditation, of how it's the same thing in meditation when you have a real sense of this being in the room with you. You know, and that's the part where a lot of us be like, yeah, I don't know so much about that. You know, that this right now, what we're experiencing right now, you know, this guy that's sitting here and teaching, and then the guy or gal who's sitting there in the golden room with you, who you really feel in the room with you when they touch your hand, and you have a sense of that, your body actually feels a warmth, that and this are not happening in the same way, and they are. And they are. And that's exactly the process we're going through with this. So we need definitely some practical ways in which we can catch ourselves misperceiving how things are happening. You know, we need to have some way that we can start facilitating this in our lives, because otherwise, believe me, I mean, you know, there are just reams of books like this, you know, that you'll get into, and you'll be like, yes, well, the absence of the gotcha cannot be that, because it's me, you know, and it just all turns into words and hot air. So a good way to really practice this is to actually watch yourself under duress. And, you know, a key aspect of that is because you're emotionally charged at that time. And that's a key facilitator for us, is our emotions being charged. Because we believe so much in our emotions. We give them so much power. You know, so if it's a moment where it's just like, I am pissed off, that feels so self-existent. I mean, you know, and it will get to the point, like, you know, fortunately, and I hope no one ever has this, where it's like to never be in a situation where, you know, someone says that and you say, well, it's not like that's self-existent, because there can be something really bad that could come out of that. You know, like the non-self-existent anger could really get pretty fierce, and we don't want that to happen to any of us here. But it is true that in those moments when we're under duress and we start to watch ourselves, we watch our mind, what's going on, that's where the gotcha starts to get revealed. That object that we deny. And a really good way of doing this specifically is watch your mind when you or someone else gets accused. This is wonderful for stripping the gotcha naked, especially when someone's falsely accused. That object that we deny comes forward fully naked in that moment. And it's great because there's ways this has been given where it's like, well, okay, when you're falsely accused, but just even someone being accused. I mean, just watch it. Next time you're in your office and you see someone getting accused of, like, well, I heard such and such, and the first thing that might come to your mind, I didn't do that. That's it, right there. That I that just came forward and said, oh, I didn't do that. That's the gotcha. And, you know, and that's kind of a more comfortable way to experience it when you're seeing someone else get accused of something. When you do, it's and particularly if you're being wrongly accused, it's more challenging to be like, that's the gotcha. Wow, that's great. Thanks, Bob. You know, if you can have that transaction happen that quickly, wonderful. You know, but it might take a few false accusations before you get to that point. So it's really good to just be mindful. I mean, you know, you can be in a restaurant or something, and someone's going over and it's just like, well, you know, hey, they didn't leave that tip or something like that, and just watch your mind in that moment. If you have just a split nanosecond of just being like, Well, I wouldn't do something like that. Well, who the hell is that I that wouldn't do the thing that hasn't even happened? You know, you can't find that I. I mean, it does come down to this aspect that if you can't identify the lily who is unjustly blamed, the you who is unjustly blamed, or the someone who is justly blamed, it will bother you if you can't identify that non-existent thing. And it's good to be bothered by that. You know, they say that if the lily who is unjustly accused is always close to the actual lily for people who understand the gakcha. And it really, because they know that they can easily make a mistake when put under pressure in those moments. When you're under duress, it's very, very easy, and we're all very, very, very susceptible to just absolutely believing in that self-existent entity. But just the one moment that you catch it, whether it's 5 minutes later or whatever, that right there plants a very powerful seed. And the truth is, you know, whether we understand how Lily exists or how she doesn't exist, you'll still be able to talk to Lily after class. You know, that's a reality. Yet we're gambling with how we think things are working all the time in this way. You know, half the time, you know, as we said, half the time traffic's okay, half the time it's not, half the time the Tylenol works, half the time it doesn't. And what's amazing is that we continue to put up with living a life like that, believing in that kind of structure. Why? And why do we do that? Probably because most often we don't think there's an alternative. We don't think there's an alternate way of thinking about the fact that there is a pill that can relieve headaches, fevers, nausea, etc., all the time. It's just that we haven't yet gained the wisdom and the seeds in our mind to be able to see such a pill. But because of emptiness, and ultimately the purpose of this class and meditation is to be able to develop that wisdom and to generate the causes that we could perceive such a pill. And when we do, that we will share that pill with everyone. I mean, that's the only reason. Because who does everyone include? You. You is included in everyone. And as long as things aren't working well all the time, then we've got to act with more wisdom and kindness. I mean, that's just it. If things are working well all the time, and we are the ones that can judge that truth for ourselves, then there's no problem there either. Because you're going to keep behaving in such a way that would create that kind of life. But if it's not, then it's upon us to try and develop this way of understanding how our life is really working, and also being able to treat people in a way that would develop such a type of life that we want to live, such a type of world that we want to live in this way. So that's why we're here. That's why this is here. That's why the meditation is happening. And beyond that, we needn't be worried about anything else. If you can create the pill that's going to work for everyone in that way, yeah, I don't think you need to be concerned about anything else. Because if you've achieved that level of mind, you're going to take care of us. You're going to take care of everyone. So let's meditate. Let's meditate. All right. So we'll really focus here now on creating a beautiful environment for each other to focus by being still, by being calm. And we'll begin by watching our breath. Go to your golden room. You can rest there. It's quiet. Relax. Enjoy the light of sunset. Look at the sky, blue, infinite. Look across the valley to the mountains. Come back to the golden room. Ask your teacher to come and sit with you. Try to go straight to contentment with this. Enjoy just sitting with your teacher. If you can do that, you'll overcome dullness and agitation in one swoop. Just let yourself be at peace. Be aware of the warmth of their body. Make that your object. The warmth of their body. Feel it along the front of you. If you go off the object, examine the typical way you go off to your next meal, things you're supposed to do, losing enjoyment of the object. There will be a pattern and you can work it. Use your watchfulness to realize the typical way you lose the object. Go back to the enjoyment of the quiet and calm of the golden room. Take your sustenance from that quiet. Come back into this room, relax, and slowly open your eyes. The Gakcha is the lily who didn't deserve to be accused but was. And ultimately, that lily cannot stand up to the analysis of emptiness. It's simply been proven time and time again to find that person cannot be found. And the way that translates into our life is to be in a peaceful state of mind where we can really be of true service to others. And that includes you. That includes you. I mean, I know sometimes, when people hear about the compassion and the focus on others and so forth, it's sort of like, well, okay, well, who's doing that? That person needs to be taken care of as well. There is this body here, there is this mind here, and we're using that. And through meditation and through understanding emptiness, we're able to use it in an extraordinary way. Extraordinary. So, I was thinking like, oh wow, what'll be my pitch for yoga this week? Which was yesterday when I was getting ready to do a meditation, and I was like, I think I'll do a headstand. And I'm not someone that does that all the time. Hadn't done one in quite a while. So I was like, yeah, so, I started to try to get up. That's not happening. And that's when I was like, well, this is great. This is just like a golden room meditation. Like, this isn't happening right now, so I will stop. And that's an important thing to remember, is that line there, it's a fine line, where things aren't going well, you stop, because that's what this whole series is about, is quality. You don't want to start building up bad habits. Just like me, not wanting to cause myself to have paralysis, it was like, I was not able to lengthen my neck and so forth and get into the headstand. So I went back to it like 2 hours later, and it was like, straight up, and it was great, because that, of course, already feels wonderful, but then take that into meditation, and then suddenly, like, my neck felt like 4 feet longer, and I was like, wow, that out of a headstand. So I'm not saying, please don't do headstands if you're not comfortable with that, but do whatever. It's doing it with that, doing whatever the physical practice is, a walk, what have you, and you're thinking to yourself, so I can have a better meditation. Like Mira and I walking up that driveway and just, getting to the top of that, and then fortunately thinking like, all right, I'll remember this for meditation. So the yoga can happen in many forms. And yes, please donate what you can to the center so we can finish so we can finish this map and enjoy our lives, help others to enjoy their lives too. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. You're welcome.